DepEd wants a budget of 976 billion pesos for next year according to the 2027 National Expenditure Program. Sara Duterte's defense team says funny names in confidential fund receipts is not an issue for state auditors. The National Power Corporation says around 80% of the people who built the United Arab Emirates Baraka nuclear energy plant are Filipinos. Iran and the US remain at odds over a permanent end to the war, with no progress reported on reviving a June interim deal. And spectators across Spain gathered to watch a rare total solar eclipse. The Department of Education asks for a budget of 976 billion pesos for next year according to the 2027 National Expenditure Program. The proposed budget for DepEd or basic education is 13.55% of the total 7.2 trillion peso spending plan, the largest allocation. The government is also seeking 176.5 billion pesos for higher education, which includes the Commission on Higher Education and state universities and colleges. It also seeks an allocation of 21.2 billion pesos for the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority. Under the Constitution, the education sector must have the biggest budget. The proposed 2027 DepEd budget is broken down into 973.4 billion pesos for the Office of the Secretary and over 2.5 billion pesos for attached agencies. While the amount is around 5% higher than the 2026 NEP, the Education Department received over 1 trillion pesos under this year's General Appropriations Act. Meantime, the Marcos administration is aiming for a 264 billion peso budget for the Department of Health in 2027. The proposed budget is 33.8 billion pesos less than the department's approved budget of 297.8 billion pesos for 2026. Vice President Sara Duterte's defense team says there was nothing irregular about the names used in the confidential funds acknowledgement receipts and the simultaneous disbursement of these funds on the same day. Defense lawyer Christine Ferrer brought up names such as Mary Grace Piatos, Andy Lim, and Christine Applegate Estrada. This during her cross-examination of COA State Auditor Silene Del Campo on the 15th day of the impeachment trial. Ferrer asked whether these names appeared in COA's notices of disallowance covering the OVP's 73 million pesos in 2022 confidential funds and 375 million pesos in 2023. Del Campo says none of the names appeared in the notices. Ferrer then asked if the funny names meant they were fictitious, prompting a prosecution objection. Presiding Officer Cheese Escudero allowed the questioning and later asked Del Campo whether the funny names were mentioned in the notices of disallowance or audit observation memorandums. Del Campo said they were not mentioned. The National Power Corporation says around 80% of the people who built the United Arab Emirates Baraka nuclear energy plant are Filipinos. Napacor points out the pool of nuclear-capable overseas Filipino workers and the challenge of rebuilding the nuclear industry on Filipino soil. Napacor President and CEO Coco Nograles says many of our nuclear-trained personnel have since retired. Others took their expertise overseas where Filipino engineers and skilled workers have contributed to nuclear facilities around the world. Nograles says 80% of the people who built the four 1,400-megawatt nuclear facilities in Baraka are Filipinos, which he attributes to Filipinos possibly doing nuclear again. As of 2024, the Philippine government said that around 1,000 Filipinos were working at Baraka. The Philippines once had its own crop of nuclear-trained personnel for the Bataan nuclear power plant, but the plant has been mothballed since 1986 over public safety concerns. Nograles says preparing the Filipino workforce could not wait until a new plant is already going up. The Napacor president adds building a nuclear power plant is easier than operating one. Iran and the United States remain at odds over a permanent end to the war in the Gulf. A senior Iranian source says there had been no progress in talks to revive the interim deal agreed in June and define a time frame to implement it. This after US President Donald Trump issued yet another broadside against Iran's leaders, dealing another blow to hopes for a resolution to the crisis. The deal reached in June called for an immediate and permanent end to military operations but quickly fell apart. Trump declared it over on July 7, while Iran said it was suspended a week later. The US accused Iran of failing to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, while Tehran said Washington had also failed to meet its commitments, including lifting a blockade of Iranian ports and then freezing Iranian assets. Trump said on Wednesday that the US has total control over the Strait of Hormuz. Spectators across Spain gathered to watch a rare total solar eclipse that swept across the north of the country on Wednesday evening, plunging it into darkness. The country's government deployed a police contingent and set up special viewing spots across rural areas that offered the best views of the spectacle. Viewers in Buitrago de la Zoya, a rural district north of Madrid, clapped and cheered as the sky dimmed just after 8:30 p.m. Madrid time, lasting barely a minute. Authorities were expecting up to 6 million visitors in mostly rural areas under the eclipse's path across the north of Spain and the Balearic Islands. The Iberian Peninsula last witnessed a total solar eclipse in 1912, but another is due on August 2, 2027, and an annular eclipse will follow in January 2028, completing the so-called Iberian Eclipse Trio. Meantime, 6 planets aligned in the sky on August 12. Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune line up along the ecliptic, creating a rare planetary alignment. It was visible globally across both the northern and southern hemispheres in the early morning hours, just before sunrise. And that's today's wrap. I'm Julian Cirineo. Thank you for watching. Click the link below for the full story. For more updates, download the Rappler app.